Today I'd like to talk about DLC, and DLC is sort of a polarizing thing in the game industry, and I think that it's worth discussing, what it is, what it should be, and how it works from a business sense. Recently I purchased Sunset Overdrive's DLC. I got the game Day 1 edition and then just didn't really play it until recently, and it knocked me out of my game playing malaise. But anyway, I decided to get the Season Pass, which includes a bunch of stuff, some of which isn't out yet. And I think it was $20, and you get 2 campaigns and some weapons and amps or some miscellaneous in-game power-ups. And, it was a little hard to say, oh, I'm going to sink $20 more into a game that I spent, I don't know, whatever it costs at launch. I didn't get it on, like, a super sale or anything. Although apparently there was a super sale where it was like $45 for the game and the season pass, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed that. But anyway, it's definitely, I'd say it's worth, the $60, and I think the DLC is going to be worth the $20. But part of the scary thing is that I can't know that for sure because only one part of the season pass is out yet. Only one, like, mini campaign. And I could have just purchased that by itself and ignored the weapon pack, but I figured I'd probably want to play the other campaign edition regardless, so I might as well purchase it. But it's interesting, that essentially paying more money for more content in a game is something that, people are willing to do, but then certainly some people expect that new content will be free, that your game is sort of an evolving service, and it's interesting to see how to sort of balance that, and obviously with like things like Steam Early Access or mobile free-to-play, having a game that's a service makes sense. You want to keep the people, sinking money into it, at least for like free-to-play, and with Early Access you want to keep people playing, keep people interested, hopefully get more players by improving the game. So I mean, in both of those cases, I think, by continuing to work on the game, you see a continued investment in the product, or hopefully, and sometimes that's not the case, and certainly I think, the Double Fine got a lot of negative feedback with the way they handled, I guess it was called Space-Based DF9, I think. But anyway, like, to me, I think that it's not necessarily, I don't see it as something they did wrong, because they finished a game, and that game may not have been what people had expected, but I think, that's always a risk, and certainly that's an inherent risk to Early Access, is that basically the money will dry up before it's in the state that people want it to be in, and one could argue that, if they get it to the really great state, then it'll sell, millions more, or something like that. But I don't think that's the case, and I think most people with successes in Early Access, I think, usually they're, funding the cost of development from the Early Access sales. And, there's a lot of games where, the game keeps selling, and they're able to keep working on it. And I think if you're not in that position, then it becomes trickier, and it becomes a huge risk. Do I keep sinking my own money into something that people are losing interest in that maybe isn't turning out great? Or do I sort of cut my losses? And I think, I believe Double Fine when, they were saying they were cutting their losses. They weren't, taking money and running. Because, the cost of development is really expensive. And so that's why, I guess even though I was complaining about the cost of the DLC for Sunset Overdrive, I don't really have a problem paying that because I know that what they created is expensive and took a lot of work on their part, and so, I don't think I should get that for free. But I guess if your game is a huge smash hit and it's selling well enough to fund additional work on the project, then I can see where people would want them to keep working on the product, especially if you're promising or you designed your game sort of around the idea of expansion. That's sort of the expected, development avenue. But anyway. I think for like an indie developer, it's a tough proposition. Certainly, a lot of people said, "Hey, it'd be great, if you had DLC for Neverending Nightmares." They liked Neverending Nightmares, and then they want to play more. And then, of course, other people are like, "Hey, the game's way too short," or whatever. But it becomes a difficult proposition because. Do we, create DLC and then charge money for it? Do we just release it for free and hope that we'll grow our audience to the point that it will justify the cost of development? Or, I don't know if there's any other options, but certainly those are the two options that we had considered. And I think it's tough for us because, Neverending Nightmares has an audience. I don't think the audience is super duper large. I mean, the sales are going pretty well at this point. Could they be going better? Possibly. But, it is what it is. But the game has not captured the size of the audience that I was hoping for. So without that, it makes things. It means we have to be very careful with our next business moves because. We haven't made enough money to fund the next product, and it's difficult to say for sure, but I suspect we won't, just due to the fact that, a lot of the sales peak at the very beginning, and, hopefully there's some other ways we can make money off the game, but, I don't think we can get the full development budget for the next project, which means basically the way we spend our time, we have to be very careful that we're doing the smartest thing with it. And when talking about DLC and adding content to the game, it's definitely something I've considered, but it's a tough thing to say whether it would make sense, and certainly I think in some hypothetical situations it might make sense more. But there's going to be the number of people who say that, hey, this should be free, and then there's going to be a smaller portion that will say, hey, I want to purchase this, because basically we're limiting our audience to a, I don't know, like a 10%, maybe let's say 10% of the audience of Neverending Nightmares wants to buy the DLC. So then, and the way our game is set up, it's very content heavy. So basically, we need to create a lot of new art and stuff if we want to create a new interesting level. I mean, I don't think anyone wants any more levels in the mansion. So basically it would be, similar to the cost of making a level for a new game. Possibly a little less expensive, but similar in cost. But a new game has the potential to reach a broader audience because, by the nature of DLC, you're only selling to a portion of your market. Whereas with a new game, certainly the new game could sell worse than Neverending Nightmares. Hopefully, it wouldn't sell worse than the amount of people who would want to buy DLC. Which is again probably like 10% of the entire market. So I mean, definitely, I think at this point, focusing on future projects makes more sense. At least in terms of our content team than creating DLC, but. It's definitely an interesting thing and a good way to potentially make money or bring in a larger audience, depending on the situation your game is in. Anyway, thanks for watching.